This is a recording of Mr. Shipman's Kindergarten Chronicles, December Celebrations, written by Terrence Shipman, narrated by Dr. Cheryl Anderson, music by Barbara Yancey, recorded 2017.
Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class.
Mr. Shipman's Kindergarten Chronicles, December Celebrations, written by Terrence Shipman. Dwayne burst into the kitchen waving a letter Mr. Shipman had given him. He was in kindergarten at Laster Elementary and bubbling with excitement. His older sister, Benicia, and his mother watched as he raced towards them and pushed the paper into his mother's hands, smiling brightly. His sister Benicia was 13 and laughed at him as she watched him scramble over to their mom. "Hey, Dwayne, how was school today?" she asked. Dwayne rattled out that school had been great and turned to his mom. "We got this letter from Mr. Shipman today. He said for us to give it to our mom." Dwayne's mother looked at the paper. "Wow, it's that time of year?" said his mom, smiling. Benicia leaned in and looked over her mom's shoulder. At the top of the page in big bold letters was "The December Holidays." "I loved December holidays in Mr. Shipman's room," Benicia clapped. Dwayne looked up at her, tilted his head with a sneaky grin. "You still remember being in his class?" "I'm not that old, little boy," Benicia chuckled as she playfully swatted at her little brother. "I remember Mr. Shipman taking stuff down in the classroom right before Thanksgiving. Everybody in class was watching him. Then Cherie asked Mr. Shipman, 'Why are you taking down all the posters and moving furniture?' Mr. Shipman looked down at us and smiled. 'It's time to prepare for the December holidays.'" Hayden squealed with excitement, jumping out of his seat. "What's going to happen? What are we going to do?" Mr. Shipman laughed out loud and gave Hayden the sit-down look and teased, "You have to wait and see." Dwayne moved beside Benicia and sat at the kitchen table as she told him all about the December holidays in Mr. Shipman's room. The next day when we went to school, Mr. Shipman took a picture of each one of us as soon as we walked into the room. And the room, it was decorated for the holidays. There were lights all over the room, giant Christmas decorations, a menorah, and a kinara. And music was playing, Christmas music. The music was my favorite. During December, we listened to holiday music all day, every day. We all walked in looking around, and we were so excited. But there wasn't a tree. Mesa sassed at Mr. Shipman. "Where is the tree?" Mr. Shipman was standing at his desk and looked at us and said, "We're going to take a field trip to the tree farm to get one." Everyone was happy and we all cheered with joy. Dwayne looked up and gasped, "You went on a real field trip? Oh boy!" "Yes," Benicia exclaimed as her mother nodded, "and it was great. We rode on the bus to the tree farm. At the tree farm, there was so much to do. We went on a hayride, drank hot chocolate, ate cotton candies, and Mr. Shipman cut down our own Christmas tree." The next day, we all brought in decorations because Mr. Shipman said, "I want our tree to be a tree that represents us all." And Joseph yelled, all excited and stuff, "It's a Team Shipman tree!" Dwayne nodded, holding his face in his hand, listening to his sister and more excited than he'd ever been about going to school. Benicia continued with a smile. Every day we read holiday books. There was a special bookshelf for these books, and we did so many art projects. I loved all the art projects. We made holiday chains, Christmas cards, reindeer Santa Clauses, stockings using cotton balls, and we even made a wreath out of our handprints. Dwayne looked at his hands as he tried to figure out how you could make a wreath from handprints. Benicia laughed at him and continued. We learned about Hanukkah, a Jewish holiday that is called Festival of Lights, and we made menorahs and put them outside the classroom. The next day we went over Kwanzaa, a holiday that honors African American heritage in the African American culture. We made kanaras and listened to African music. In his mind, Dwayne saw his sister doing a little African dance for Kwanzaa. I remember when the big day came, Benicia whispered. There was more? Dwayne asked, eyes stretched wide. Benicia nodded and kept telling him the story of the December holidays in Mr. Shipman's room. We picked names out of Santa's hat to exchange gifts with someone else in the class. I remember Leandra picked William, and Autumn giggled when she got her best friend, Seraphina, and David pulled Clifford. Then Summer began to cry because no one pulled her name. Mr. Shipman told her, I got you, little girl. He hugged her and she stopped crying. Dwayne's mom smiled as she remembered the December holidays in Mr. Shipman's room. Friday was the last day before the winter break, Benicia recalled. It was the day we all had been waiting for. There was a joyful feeling in the air, and the room really felt alive that day. Parents brought in gifts and all types of food, their mother added. She smiled, listening and remembering, too, the December holidays in Mr. Shipman's room. Benicia went on telling Dwayne about Tiffany and how beautiful her dress and shoes were that day, and how Mr. Shipman wore a Christmas tie and Christmas socks, too. We watched a movie in the morning until lunchtime, she said, but no one really ate anything at lunch because we all wanted to eat the food in the classroom. Benicia's mom joined in again, caught up in the story, too. Parents came to the class and we moved desks around to form tables. Cameron's mom was making hot dogs in the back of the room. Even Mr. Shipman's mom brought in food and cakes. Dwayne's mouth fell open. Mr. Shipman's mom came too? His mother nodded, and Benicia kept talking. Mr. Shipman said a blessing, and then the eating began. There were chips and salads, soda, punch, dips, candy, and Mr. Shipman's mom's strawberry cake. We were having so much fun. And then Mr. Shipman got a call from the office. He left the room with a large black bag. Tatiana tried to go with Mr. Shipman. I want to come with you, Mr. Shipman, she chuckled. No, you stay here. I'll be back, answered Mr. Shipman. Everyone started dancing and singing. Then there was a knock at the door. Jamarcus opened the door, and there was Santa Claus. Well, Mr. Shipman dressed as Santa. The room erupted with cheers. He gave each kid a present. We all got 2 gifts. The special gift was the ornament he made for us with our picture. We finally found out why he had taken pictures. I bet he'll take our pictures too, Dwayne shouted, full of happiness. Benicia smiled and continued. Mr. Shipman took us to the other classes around the school giving out candy and saying Merry Christmas. The parents cleaned the room, and Mr. Shipman opened his gifts. He got his favorites: peanuts, coffee, and gum. He smiled and laughed out loud. He gave the Christmas tree to Alicia's family. We all said goodbye to Mr. Shipman as the bell rang. Benicia smiled and tilted her head like she really was having a good time remembering. I ran back and gave him a hug. Mr. Shipman said, "Merry Christmas, Benicia, and Happy New Year." That's how I spent the December holidays in Mr. Shipman's room. Dwayne cheered. My December holidays will be better in Mr. Shipman's room. Yes, it will, little brother. Yes, it will.
Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Yay!
This has been a recording of Mr. Shipman's Kindergarten Chronicles, December Celebrations. The end.